Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Lavery, and I'm the marketing lead here at Climate People. I'm joined by our founder, Brendan, and Jesse, who we recently just placed in a climate job. So, Jesse, would you mind starting out by just telling us a little bit about yourself and touch on your experience getting a job in climate?
Yeah. So my name is Jesi Merrick. I originally went to school for computer science, and I've worked, as a software developer for a number of years, primarily in sort of in the healthcare space, but some other oddball jobs along the way, as you tend to do. And then I actually, a couple of years ago, this started the train of like thinking about, when I first came into tech, when you're right out of college, you're just like, I gotta get a job. You gotta get a job, and you don't always put a lot of thought into what kind of work you want to do. So I started really thinking about what products matter to me, like what I care about and how I want to make my impact. And that's kind of where I started thinking more and more about the environment and like climate change and all of that, and slowly started educating myself on where I wanted to go.
Yeah, definitely. What was it about climate change and like the climate sector that piqued your interest?
Yeah, so I think for me, part of it goes back to a childhood where I spent a lot of time outside. Animals and nature and all that is very important to me. That's why I've made my home a jungle in a sense, and that I have a lot of animals and a lot of plants crammed into a tiny apartment. And it's hard to ignore more and more how what those impacts are having, like on the environments in my area or back home in Guatemala or sort of any of these places. And where was I going with this? I'm losing it. I think it came from me kind of going back to what I care about and my roots, and then being like, well, I feel like I've kind of lost some of that over the years. How do I get back to that and be more connected to what I care about and what kind of help me become the person I am?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually like a really common answer that we get. It's like I cared about it so much as a child, and then I separated those two things, and how can I bring them back? So yeah, definitely feel that, and that's really similar to me as well. Um, so did you experience like any barriers when you're looking to get a job in climate, or could you just touch on like the interview process and how all of that went?
Yeah. So when I started thinking about this 2 years ago, I wasn't really looking yet because I didn't know where to look. Like, I think the initial Google searches I made really just came up with data work, and I'm not a data scientist. I'm a software developer, and I wasn't really interested in changing in that way. So I didn't really know where to look. And as I also ran into the issues, I started trying to find more places, especially more recently. I was like, well, I don't really know how to tell if so and so company is really making an impact, or if it's effectively greenwashing, or maybe well-meaning but not necessarily going to make a big difference. So I think those were my two main barriers. I didn't see the kind of jobs for the work I was already doing that I could transfer those skills. And I was really nervous sometimes looking at a company being like, I don't know, is this the right call? Is this where I want to go? And finding all the information and connections for that took a while, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a follow-on question to that. Jesse, do you remember when you started maybe 2 years ago, just exploring what specific resources were you using to actually try to find the job? Was it just simply a matter of doing Google searches, or were there other websites, job boards, things like that, like the traditional methods that oftentimes people use that you were looking for these jobs?
Yeah, I don't entirely remember. I know I did, like, there's some initial Google searches, and I probably spent some amount of time on LinkedIn, or at the time I still used Built in Chicago a fair amount as well, but narrowing it down to Chicago-based jobs, I think makes it harder to find those things as well. Yeah, I hadn't found any sort of the resources that I did this past year, when I really started being like, okay, it's time to move. I gotta find a job. I gotta look for this. I want to make the change.
What were those resources that you just mentioned, like the past year? Which ones were you using?
Yeah, so I started by looking for what were the Tech Jobs for Good, Climate Base, and then I recently joined the Working Climate Slack channel as well. And of course, obviously, I started talking to climate people. And those are still all great resources. Those are what I've been recommending to people as I may be slowly convincing ex-coworkers they need to jump into climate as well. I'll keep talking about this and they'll be like, oh, that sounds a lot better than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, that's really great. It's interesting. I mean, we did a survey and we just released the results of the survey. Kudos to Nat for all the work that you did on that. And it's really interesting. I think, you know, a lot of folks until you discover this community that exists in climate and all of the resources that are out there, if you're looking at those traditional methods like you were a few years ago, you don't find what you're looking for ultimately. And then once you get exposed to these other, what we're trying to figure out, and we're talking to a lot of those communities directly, is how do we get this out to the masses? How do we make this so everybody finds this type of information very easily and that it's not such a burden? Because unlike you, a lot of folks, if it's hard, they like what ends up, they'll just go into their LinkedIn their inbox, and there's so many job opportunities that came to them. It's just, that's easy. That's low hanging fruit. I can go get another job really easily. But if I want to find something that's really meaningful and impactful and aligns with my values around this problem that's really big, and we need lots of people from all different walks of life and their careers to go solve those problems, those resources aren't necessarily that easy to find.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot too. When I started job searching, I had multiple coworkers that were looking around the same time. Out of that group of people, I'm the last one to accept a job offer. But I was also, I feel like, probably the most picky of everyone I knew that was looking. A lot of them took jobs with companies they may or may not be happy with, but they got a job offer very quickly because they knew someone there, or because same thing, they're seeing those offers on LinkedIn. They're like, I don't have to look for it at least, so I'll follow up with this. It sounds interesting. And it can be harder right now because either people don't know about that there's work to be done in climate, or it takes a little bit more time to figure out what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. We're definitely grateful that you were picky. So I know you said that you found Tech Jobs for Good first. Do you recall how you came across that? Just because, like Britton said, we're trying to pinpoint how people can go from using those traditional methods like LinkedIn and Indeed and all of that to climate jobs, and like what that transition point is. I know you said like referrals. Is that the answer? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, so for finding Tech Jobs for Good, I think I was really just like doing random Google searches like ethical tech jobs or environmental tech jobs. And I think I might have ended up on Reddit at some point, actually. I feel like I found a Reddit thread that was listing different job sites and different like email, like, what's the term?
Excellent.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like you have to be looking exactly for those terms in order to come across it. And most people aren't like you and aren't searching for those exact terms, but hopefully we can continue to do the work to get the word out a little bit more. Could you touch a little bit on the job that you'll be taking and what exactly you'll be doing?
Yeah. So I took a job as a software engineer of Salient Predictions. I'll be focusing on their front end, though I'm excited to be kind of doing the whole full stack of experience. And I guess I find what they're trying to do very interesting because they have this way of more accurate and more long-range weather predictions. And honestly, it's important when you think about, especially like everything that's happening over in the UK right now with the heat wave, and like people are dying about that. And so the more we can see where these massive, like unprecedented weather effects are going to happen, that gives people time to react to them, not just in the moment when people don't have the resources they need.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. Like, I know a lot of candidates that we work with want to accept a job in like the climate mitigation space where they can like prevent the effects of climate change. However, like we are living it, as we can see with the heat waves, like you mentioned, and we really do need those tools and technologies to help us live and adapt to everything that we're experiencing. So it's really important. Thank you so much for doing that work. Is this like, I guess looking back like 2 years ago when you first started your job search. Is this kind of how you envisioned a career in climate would look like, or is it different or maybe on par?
I don't know if I had that vision. To be honest, I didn't know what a career in climate would look like because I wasn't finding examples of it that match with who I am. And I guess in that sense, it's better because I am seeing like this is something that I could really do as a career and make an impact on and still make a perfectly fine living on. And yeah, I'm glad to have gotten here.
Yeah, definitely. You knew you wanted to make that impact, but you didn't know exactly how. So that honestly makes the job search a little bit more pleasant when you can have all of the opportunities. How's your experience working with climate people?
It's been great. I mean, all the conversations I've had with everyone so far have been really helpful, and I feel like those were some of the first conversations I was having with people in the space that were showing like the same values and same ideas of what I'm looking for. You know, when I kind of first started mentioning this to some of my coworkers, they're like, "Yeah, that's nice in concept, but what would that really look like?" Or I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about more ethic and morals driven work. And so it's been exciting to see that sort of reflected in someone at least. Like it's not that crazy enough idea. Other people are thinking this way as well.
There sure are. There
Yeah.
sure are.
Yeah, I loved how you said like my coworkers were like, that's nice in practice or nice in idea, but not in practice. And now you can show them like, hey, look, it actually is real. And that's kind of like the sole purpose behind these videos is like showing people stories because it's not just some dream job that's a fantasy. It's like an act, like we need so many people working on climate. And so yeah, definitely awesome. Brenda, do you have any other questions that I didn't touch on before we start talking about our 1% program?
No, I think that's great. I think we've covered all of it. And Jesi, it's been obviously great working with you. So happy that you were referred to us. So that was, yeah, it's been great. Nat, we'll talk a little bit about our 1% for the Planet partnership.
Yeah. So while our sole mission, like we've said so many times today, is to get more people working on climate, but we also are proud to donate 1% of every placement fee to an environmental nonprofit. We sent over a few choices. I can give you a quick little refresher if you need it. But did you happen to choose which one you want to donate to?
I want to go with Soulfire Farm.
Awesome. Yeah, they're a great one. Perfect. So yeah, we will donate 1% of your placement fee to them in your name. So thank you so much. And like Brendan said, yeah, it was great working with you, and we really appreciate not only the work that you've done now, but you will continue to do and inspiring those old coworkers to get a job in climate.
Yeah, maybe I can point more people your way in a bit here when they finally crack. I keep dropping them articles. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, send them to our website. Even if they don't want to talk to us, just they can go to the website and maybe they see a job that really inspires them, or they see a post that Natalie puts out there that inspires them to, to reach out. And as you know, hopefully, like there's no pressure here. Like our goal and mission is to get people to work on climate, not push, any one company or job. It's just hopefully through this process, just find the right fit and help people find meaningful work where they can use their software skills to really make an impact.